Welcome back, everybody. It's Duane from Duane and Nadia, Food, Travel, and Fun. And tonight I am going to take a different take on a recipe we did a long time ago. And I'm making Portuguese favas. The recipe was done by Nadia. It was one of our earliest videos. And she had done it with green fava beans. And we were going to do it with brown fava beans that you get from a can, but we couldn't find any, so I am doing it the complete traditional way with dried favas. These are the brown ones, and I soaked them for 48 hours before I started getting all this together so I could put this video together. There's quite a few ingredients, but nothing new. I am also going to include the recipe at the bottom. Below this video, you'll see it in the comments. I'll have the full recipe, and I will have comments regarding the other, when you use canned as opposed to doing it from dry. It takes a little longer to not only prep for the dry, but to even cook the dry, because they really, they soak up a lot of liquid, but it takes a while, and you want to get them nice and soft and nice and tender and very edible. So that's really about it right now. I'm going to chop up some other ingredients. I did start a little bit. I chopped up the onions, but they go really chunky and they're going to go in early. Let me chop up this linguica, and I'm going to take you guys over to the stove and show you how it's done. All right, so here we are. We're at the stove. I'm going to get this burner going. For now, it's going to be on a fairly high flame just as I get my olive oil going. Using about 4 or 5 tablespoons of olive oil. Didn't have much in this container, so I'm going to finish it off. It's just enough to line the bottom of the pan. I'm going to use this to kind of sweat my onions, get them started. I'm going to let this get a little warmed up. And no, there you go, it's getting warm. I'm going to get these onions in the pan. Careful with olive oil. It does have a low smoke point, meaning it's easy to burn. So don't overheat the olive oil. You'll actually get it smoking and it'll be burning, and that's no good. So other oils are higher. Vegetable oil is higher. But olive oil works great. So I'm gonna lower this just a bit again. And just the onions are in the oil. Let's give this a few minutes. As you can see, it's just going in there, and we'll return in a minute once these have sweat down a little bit and start to get a little bit clear and a little soft, and then we'll start adding more ingredients. So I lowered the flame, and as you can see, they're starting to get nice and clear here. I'm going to add in the garlic, which is really gonna give a lot of this is really gonna, oh yeah, it smells beautiful. I love garlic smell. So I added about a 1/4 cup of garlic to this, and I'm gonna add a good teaspoon of coarse salt and let this cook for a minute. I let these onions go for about at least 7 minutes, maybe even 8, for them to get nice and clear. I had lowered the flame down because I'm not trying to char them at all, just trying to get them to sweat and come clear and soften up and just start the process. They're going to be in here a long time. When I actually add the beans, this is going to cook for quite a period, but we're just trying to get all the flavors to kind of come out, kind of start to mingle together here a bit. All right, let's give this another minute, and we'll move on to the next step. So it's been about 1-2 minutes. That's blended in nicely. I'm going to add all of our linguica to this mix now, and about half of the chicken broth. Maybe a little bit less, but we're gonna put a nice amount in there. I added at least 3 cups of chicken broth just now. So everything's kind of soaking in the broth. Just about enough to cover everything. I might even add a little bit more. I'd like to see everything covered. There we go. So 3 to 4 cups got added in. And that's about a pound, and I'm using about 1.5 pounds of linguica. This is a slightly larger batch than the average. I used 2 bags instead of just 1. So the recipe is that I'm going to be sharing with you is for 1. Just double up if you are increasing the, if you're using 2 instead of 1. So let's let this come back to a boil, and we'll be right back. So we have reached a boil. You can actually see a little bit of the color coming out of the linguica. And at this point, I'm going to start adding in my tomato sauce. So I'm going to add about the first can. I'm using 2 cans for this recipe, and I'm going to add half of it. Get that in there. And I'm going to do the same. I got 2 cans of tomato paste as well. And I'm going to add half of that right now. And start to blend this in nicely. I could probably, there we go. Let's get this, now we get some nice rich red, almost a brown color going in here. It's darkening it up very nicely. There's still a lot of tomato paste to soften up here. Let me get that mixed in, because the next ingredient I'm actually adding 2 things. I'm about to put the Favas in, and I'm going to add one of the bottles of beer. Can, bottle, doesn't matter. You know, you usually use like a light beer, an old beer, not flat, but you can use a beer you've had around for a long time. It doesn't have to be a fresh beer at all. I guess the old beers are actually preferred, not necessarily by me. I'm not a big beer person either, though. So, but there you go. Now with the paste I've added in, it's really made this thicken up. It's going to thin out again once I add this beer. But I'm going with the Favas next, and as you can see, there's 2 bags of Favas that have soaked in salted water. So I made a salted brine. I added about, basically bring it till it tastes almost like salt water. Maybe not quite so strong, but close. And as you can see, once I've added in these beans, my liquid level just disappeared. It's no longer, like, these beans are not fully covered in liquid. So let's get this beer in there. See if we can get it. So you can see, look at that. She's foaming up nice. That's not a flat beer at all. Looking good. But we're going to get a lot of this flavor in early. And we will be adding another one later. We're going to be adding more sauces later, more broth. These beans, as they cook, they are going to continue to swell and soak up the liquid. So we don't want to run out of liquid in this process. And it's going to be done on a low heat for a long period. It's going to be a low simmer. But you can't ignore it or you will burn the bottom. So every 20 minutes, make sure you're in there stirring. If it's really, if it's got a steady boil going on, although it should be a very light, low boil, make sure you get in this and pay attention to it. These beans are going to darken up. They're going to turn very brown from the sauce that's been added here. But we're going to let this sit for a moment as it warms back up. And then once it warms up, we're going to go into the next step where we're going to start adding in, I'm going to start adding in more seasonings, more liquid, and let this thing just simmer and just check on it, stir it, simmer, check on it, stir it, and do that process for quite a while. Since they were dry beans, I'm saying this is going to take, it's going to take hours. Hopefully not too many hours, because I'd like to get to bed tonight. But I have a feeling if it took 3 hours, it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm expecting at least a 2-hour process and most likely longer. So with the canned, it's much shorter because the beans are already soft. They were never dried. With the dried beans, you have to really make sure they're fully reconstituted and nice and soft, and that just takes time. So it's a labor of love, and I'm going to love this batch of beans, and we're going to end up with a beautiful batch by the end of it. And I hope out there, one of you or more of you try it at some point and let me know how it goes for you. So, but here it is. Let's get this covered up again. Let it warm up a bit, and we'll move on to the next step as soon as I return. So it's taken about another 7 or 8 minutes to get this back to a boil. I'm over a medium-low heat. It's on our large burner, so that's actually a good flame. You know, I think the beans just they absorb a lot of heat before they kind of really let things kick off again. And I'm looking at the liquid level, and I know these beans are going to keep absorbing liquid, so to me it's still a bit low. So I'm going to add more liquid here. I'd say at least another 2 cups I just added. Let's see how that stirs. There we go. It's stirring much easier. And I'm about to start adding in our seasonings. So far we just have the tomato sauce, paste, the beer, and some salt. So, along with the linguica, garlic, and onion that started it off. So I'm going to come to the smoked paprika. And I'm adding in a teaspoon of smoked paprika. And about 1.5 teaspoons of crushed red pepper flakes. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a dash or 2 of nutmeg, which brightens, but you really don't want to adjust the taste too much. You have to be very careful with nutmeg. Use very little. I've got pimenta moida, or it's crushed red pepper. I've got 2 tablespoons of that here. Adding that to the mix. It is a spicy recipe. So you gotta make sure you get your pepper in there. Let's get a teaspoon of black pepper. And these seasonings can be adjusted later on to suit. You have to really taste it later on after it's had a lot of time to cook. But these will get you started for sure. You may not need to do any real adjustment. It may be fine. And of course, Nydia's favorite and one of mine's, some Frank's Red Hot. And no, I did not skimp. It's at least 1/8 of a cup and possibly 1/4 cup of Frank's in there. I'm going to let this come back to a boil again and add in the rest of my tomato paste, my tomato sauce, and then I'm going to let this cook for quite a while. Add in the last can of beer after I've seen that the beans are starting to cook a long ways and I've started to soak up some of that liquid. If I need more chicken broth, which I expect I very likely will, I'll add more of that as well. I'll do some taste testing at the time and see how the pepper level is and go from there. So for now, this is it for a little bit. It's not boiling, but it's pretty hot. I want to get it back to a boil. I want to give it a few minutes before I do any more adjusting. Let this kind of balance out a bit. It smells amazing. And it's looking pretty good. So as you can see, the pot's really starting to fill up, but we still got plenty of space to work with. This should be no problem at all. So I'll check back with you in a few minutes. So this is returned to a boil. I'm going to take the remaining tomato sauce, add it in. There we go. And the second jar of paste. The idea is, as Nydia was sharing with me, to give these sauces as much time as possible to marry with the other ingredients. This is going to return to a boil in a minute, And I am going to, I'm putting it on low right now. I'm going to put it on a small burner and keep that low. And it's just going to be a slow, long simmer until much later, where I add this second beer. I'll add the second beer and do my tasting and decide if it needs more pepper or other seasonings, if it's more salt, whatever it might be. And take care of it then. But there you go. So she's looking great. She's nice and thick. I love the size of these dried beans. They are just enormous. I mean, look at that. That like fills this oversized spoon here, this stirring spoon. So, all right. This is coming back. It's going on the back burner. I am gonna be attending to this for probably the next 2 hours anyways. And I'll bring you back a ways down to let you see progress on how it's coming along, how the beans should be changing up. They should be darkening up in this mix. And that's it. So for now, yep, she's back to a boil. Start this small burner back there. Turn that on low. Switch it back to that burner, and I will catch you guys in a little bit. All right, so this has been cooking for an hour and a half now. And smells amazing. You can see it's reducing down a bit. The beans are still too hard. They're not ready yet. I'm gonna see if I can add in. I think it's time to add this beer in. Definitely come a long way. Put the second beer in. I did try a bean and it was still pretty stiff. It was, I could get through it, but it's not ready at all. So there we go. So add some cook time to it. I think I got enough liquid to keep me going. They are absorbing it and I'm letting it reduce. Once in a while I'm cracking the lid a bit. I'm usually keeping it completely covered, but I am stirring this every 10 minutes or sometimes even more frequently. Just about 3.5 hours in, where I've been stirring probably every 10 minutes or so the entire time. You can see the beans have got that nice brown color now. They're starting to get tender. Well, they're tender. The skins aren't quite there yet, so it still has to cook a little bit longer, probably another 30 minutes. But there you go, there's a nice close-up. Tomorrow, I will be actually trying it out for real, officially. It is one of those things that's greatly improved after you let it sit. Just for, you know, the overnight, let the pepper blossom. There is a lot of different peppers in there. And yeah, she's coming along. So another 30 minutes, I'll say that should be done. And that's it for the night. We are there. Welcome back, everybody. Here we go. Check it out. There's our beans. They are cooked. It took over 4 hours. They're soft. Very pliable. The onions are cooked, completely gone. The onions just cooked into the sauce itself. And the pepper flavor really comes through. The more, as this sits, a lot of times this is left to sit overnight, and that next day, the pepper just blossoms through the sauce, and it just, it makes for, it balances out quite a bit. I did want to say, I'm going to leave it in the recipe below. I'm going to leave a comment about it, because the biggest challenge with these dried brown favas is the skin. It's really hard to get the skin to be nice and soft, where you can eat the beans without really having to chew through the skin. And sometimes it even seems that when the skin, some of the skins that remain tough, keep the bean inside kind of tough as well. So I am gonna include a recommendation in the recipe to initially soak them for 48 hours, then boil them for at least an hour in like fresh water. Strain the water out, put in new water, maybe add because you're using 16 cups of water, so I would add about 1/8 of a cup of salt to the fresh water that you're gonna boil, and then boil it for a good hour. The reason I do that is to really get the skin softening process, give it a jump start on the cook. Otherwise, you may have to cook it extra time to reach that point, and you could very likely end up with some like dry beans that are still kind of hard, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So I'm not finding dry beans here, but I did give it a lot of cook time, and my thought is that it would only help you to make it a little easier to manage. And just, you have to really do it on a low simmer once you've added all the sauce in, but by boiling it, you can keep it on a much higher heat and really just penetrate and soften and get the whole process started off that much better. So I'm gonna enjoy my bowl. And once again, Duane and Nidia, Food, Travel, and Fun. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you try the recipe. If so, leave a comment below and we'll chat about it. Tell your friends, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications for this video and more, and we'll see you next time here at Duane and Nidia's. Thanks.